Okay, guys, I haven't been around for a while. Sorry. But I was doing, I did a bunch of work to the TFS high ports. They got to go back to the machine shop. But they turned out quite nice. I'm pretty happy with them the way they are. And I wanted to do an experiment because I got these recently from my friend Jeffrey Lund. He picked up an engine and it had an E5TE and an E7TE on it. And I'm sure someone's going to say, those heads aren't the same. Well, they're not exactly the same. The ports look almost identical, but the short side radiuses are a little different. The E5 definitely has a more laid back short side radius on both the intake and the exhaust than the E7. Chamber looks pretty much the same. I'm sure someone will get the specs on an E5TE and tell you guys exactly what they came in and so forth, but I'm using this head as experimental. And I'm going to tell you what was going on in my tiny little brain. Is there are a couple guys that are doing Ford heads on the internet, and they get incredible speeds out of these things. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take stock valves and I'm going to hog that out. And I want to see what I can get. The only thing I did on the valve job is I hit it with a 60 to shrink up the 45 because the 45 was wide. Okay, and the exhaust got a 60, and then I hit it with a burr and radiused it in a little bit. But it's notice it's not Charlie's usual quality, because even just doing this for an experiment took hours. Now, how thin are these? You could run these on the street. They are not paper thin. The thinnest they go down in a couple spots is around 98 thousandths, but there's always a possibility that I missed a spot too. And the problem with doing 8 ports like that, right, is you may not be able to copy that port exactly and still have good thicknesses due to core shift and inclusions and things like that. But I wanted to say to myself, I'm like, you know what? I want to see what can be done. The stock intake valve, I ground a 50 on it, and I ground a 30 back cut on it. The exhaust just got a 45, and I cleaned the carbon and stuff off them. Otherwise, they're completely stock. The the upper cuts of the valves are that's all stock. These heads were actually in pretty damn good shape. I haven't decided what I'm doing with this yet, but I figured there's definitely something to be learned from these. So, without too much wasted time, let's take a look and see how they float. And you know what? I decided to put up my 194/16 50-degree E7TEs that are basically done, but I'm not happy with them. And when you see how close these come, you're going to say, yeah, there's something wrong there, Charlie. And I'm going to say, yeah, you're right. There's definitely something wrong with the 50s. Take a look. Okay. This is the 194/50. All right, we max out, I figure 225. Not great. I think I was doing better than that before I got this far along. I think I was getting up to about 230. Right? Plenty of swirl. Up to 3,000 swirl. Lots of swirl. In fact, when I look at the speeds on the roof, I think that's part of it right there. That one side of that roof is way fast. Just me thinking out loud, guys. Now take a look at the exhaust. The exhaust is pretty decent. Right? We get 171 at 600, and we're almost exactly 200 with a decent sized pipe. Now that's a 1.6 with no back cut. Okay, now the blue pen, that's the E5TE. It's a 1.78 intake, 1.46 exhaust. Take a look at how close they are. I mean, at 300, you got 189.6 to 165. Okay, the smaller valve is definitely losing out. But as you go up, let's go to 400. 215.2 to 199. 221.4, 209.2. 225, 215.1. I didn't even touch the chamber. The chamber has not been touched. No deshrouding. I think the next thing I want to do is do all my chamber work and see how much it pops up. Or loses. It may actually lose because it seems whenever I blend the chamber, I lose flow somewhere in the curve. So I need to figure out why that happens. Okay, so at 600, you're only down 10 CFM. That's not bad. Take a look at our exhaust. Now, let's take a look at our swirl. Swirl is almost 3,000 up top. Right? It's actually got a nice swirl curve. It's actually got a little more swirl than I would like. Let me just see something. See, our short side radius numbers are pretty good because it already came with a laid back short side radius, so that really works well on the intake, that is. Alright, sorry, I'm a little scattered. Too much sun last week and this week already. Oof. Melted my brain. Florida is tough in the summertime. Okay, what I wanted to say about the flows on the exhaust. When I first did the E7TEs for David Vizard, his exact quote was, if you can get that exhaust with a 1.6 to 165, I'll be thrilled. This one is with a smaller valve, and it beats that by a bunch. Okay, let's take a better look at that bowl. Has been widened, and it's actually been deepened on the chamber side quite a bit because there's tons of metal in there. So I said, you know what, we're going to make it bigger and see what we got. Now, what I did notice was when you, sorry guys, when you move this back, right, it works better at the higher flows, but you lose a bunch right in the mid-range. I mean, if you look at the mid-range, here we go, right here versus here, okay, these bowls weren't taking out so much metal right there, but they fill much better in this area. Yeah, we lose some up top. Interesting to look at, right guys? Let's move these heads around and see what you can see. Okay, the pinch is exactly the same as the 50-degree E7s. The roof is a little bit thinner. The side wall, the straight wall, is a little bit thinner. The outside wall is about the same, actually. Okay? I did not have to make the short side radius thin because I got a nice shape out of it, and it was already laid back quite well. You can see it's got a decent shape to that port. Is it perfect in every way? No. And it doesn't need to be not for what we're doing on this. Okay, the exhaust I made much thinner on the center of the cylinder side than I would on a regular running engine. Would it still be fine? Yeah, it probably would still be fine, but I like that wall a little on the thick side. Trouble is, a lot of your flow comes right off that center and down and around. This was able to blow out. This is blown out, so it's only 98 thousandths thick. Okay? But that big fat bowl works really well. And I was able to round the bowl quite a bit on these. They seem to have a little more meat at the very back of the bowl than the E7s. That may be my imagination, but I took a decent amount of metal out of there. But same type of thing. If you look at the curve, right, middle part, we're at 116, 144. Huge difference. So same thing as on the intake bowl. When you knock this back, right, it works better at the high flows. If you want more mid-range, leave the metal there. Okay, guys? Now, it depends on what you're trying to do. These are pretty nasty drag race ports, the way they are. Okay, you can see I don't even have that little spot that I like to leave in. That's gone. Now, is that super thin? No, it's not super thin. It's usable the way it is right now. Okay. You can see the exhaust is... it's got a decent amount of metal out of it, but as I always do, I didn't make the outside much bigger. It's just a cleanup. Now, could I make that exit a lot bigger and see what it does? Give me some feedback, what you think I should do with these. This head's never going to run again. I'm 99% sure of it. I may saw it up. I may... hell, if somebody wants to give me some couple dollars, I may saw off sections of these done up. It's an idea. Let me know what you guys want to do with these. But as they are right now, without the chamber done, I mean, think of it this way: if you're a hot rodder and you're broke, and you get yourself a decent set of heads, I would say even with a cheap Sonic, you could probably get pretty close to these. Yeah, you're gonna have to be careful. Measure everything where you can, type of thing, and only depend on the Sonic, where you absolutely have to. See, like the roof is tough to measure on here. My probe does not fit on that roof, and my probe is relatively small. This is considered a 1/4-inch probe. Okay, you put it in here. It doesn't make it. It doesn't fit. It won't fit until about here. And then I can get a measurement. Okay? So I always go a little easy on there. It would be nice to knock that roof up a little bit more and not have to worry about it. That's why I'm thinking I may saw these up. We can see what's what and how much higher we can go. And then I would revisit these, even though they may not be identical. Not really happy with these the way they sit right now. Would they make good power with these numbers? Yeah, it'd probably dip into the 10s with a Fox body with the right person driving it. Well, you guys give me your opinion on that. You could say what you like on that. Alright, your short side on the E5TE looks very much like a done E7TE. Okay, the intake looks very similar to the E7, but I didn't have to take much metal off of this. In order to get that shape on an E7, you're flirting with 100 thousandths or less metal on that short side. And then to get them all the same is really tough, because there's always one that's a little thinner. It's a pain. See if I can focus that in for you guys a little bit better. Okay. Now I was thinking about moving that bottom curve over and see if that makes a difference. See, this wall here is not super thin. towards the short side radius. Alright guys, I'm kind of rambling. But I figured I'd do a little something for you guys because I haven't been doing anything. Not for you guys anyway. And I missed you, so. Overall, that intake port looks pretty darn good. I mean, I've read, you know, where guys get E7s with stock valves to 240. I don't know. I can't do it. So, either I'm doing something wrong or they're not really hitting 240. So, I think that's it, guys, because I'm burnt. Have a good night. Thanks for hanging out.